Invite.
Yes, it's going to start now. Hello, everyone. Good evening. I'm Rezon Chatru. Here I am working as an IB teacher at Abdul Kader International School. Today we have got a very special guest, and he is from India. He's working at DPS International School, and he's a teacher, single subject teacher of arts. That means he's taking classes for dance classes, and he's a teacher of MYP and DP as well. Thank you, Mr. Vaishak, for joining with us. And today he's going to talk about a single subject planners, how he's planning the things, how he's conducting the class. So I hope you're going to learn a lot of things from our special guest, Mr. Vaishak Raj. So now I'm going to request him uh, to start his session. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much, Reis. Uh, yeah, it's like a few things that, yeah, I started my journey with PYP. Now I'm teaching MYP dance. I'm not yet reached DP dance. So this is a correction. I'm just taking cash for DP for the coming academic year. Uh, but yes, a little bit about myself. So I think there are a lot of people who are joining online also. So I was always in. I graduated as a scientist. I did my BSc honors in agriculture sciences, and from there, somehow or the other, I was quite influenced by my dance teachers who were very, great academicians in their own venture. So that's how my journey to dance also started. And somewhere, I think so the universe conspired, and that's how I got into dance. And I always wanted to become a teacher. I was never sure that whether I wanted to become a dance teacher. I never thought I'll become a dance teacher. My initial interests were always to literature and then to science, actually. But somehow things started working. And you know when I went uh, to my current organization, DPS International, I never knew what IB was, or how the entire world of IB is. I went there to apply as a dance teacher, and then suddenly I got into this wonderful curriculum and pedagogy that somehow brought all my interests together in science, in literature, and in creativity. And I found, like, because the way I used to practice my art, and the way I used to practice my dance, everything was very much transdisciplinary in nature and interdisciplinary in nature. So I never found it very, something that is, what should I say, very alien to me. It always came naturally to me because that's the way I used to express myself. And I remember during my college last year, during my experiential learning, there was one session where, we were asked to mark, what all what is your interest areas and everything. And suddenly mine came out as dance. So my facilitator who was facilitating that told that, if you can find a place where, you can integrate your arts along with other subjects, especially with science, then that's your true calling. And little did I know when I entered IB that, this was actually my true calling. So it was no looking back after that. And I started, my entire career has been in one school with DPS International. And when I'm sitting here and when I'm talking to, I really should take out few names. My head of school, Miss Reema Singh, whose category one workshop, IB workshop, really inspired me. And I think a lot of things I've written and a lot of things that I've practically I speak every time is from that workshop experience, which actually gave me a wider perspective. There are two more people, Miss Arpita, who was my PYP coordinator and mentor at that time, and Miss Kamal Shah, who was my primary principal, who also gave me so much of support. And uh, so when we talk of a normal traditional curriculum, art, dance, music, PHE, all these are scholastic subjects and they are considered. But in IP, we consider that a very integral part. It is a subject
All are
when
integrated.
correct. It is integrated by the time they reach to middle school. By the time they reach to MIP 4 and 5, they select dance or they opt music or something as their portfolio subject. So it's very much a subject. And I was very happy that there was a system and a management and a faculty who understood this in a larger picture and gave me that understanding. So a lot of knowledge that I acquired in the past years was definitely due to their support also, the way they mentored me also. So today I'm just here to randomly share that what I've gone through in these years and what I've experienced. I'm just coming after taking a workshop for MYP dance and drama teachers. So we had so much of discussions, and everything led to PYP one way or the other, though it was an MYP workshop. So quite happy that this is happening on the same day, because I'm taking a lot of things from that session, and also probably I can speak about that also today. So without much further ado, I think so. Uh, I'll start discussing on today's topic, that is, planning for single subject specialists, or the PYP planners for single subject specialists. Now, um, I'll just share, and I think so. This is something quite I've seen and I've experienced when I talk with other educators around the globe also. Uh, just to quote a small example, during our school evaluation time, the evaluation leader who came up, and we had an interaction with the evaluation leader. And the moment all of us came, the single subject specialist came, the evaluation leader told, "Oh my God, these are the people who cannot be touched." And it took me a little time to understand this, and because definitely these subjects are quite they're structured, and they're delivered in a certain way. And most of the people who practice this, it is not merely a job for them, it's something beyond that for them, actually. The art and the craft and the music and physical education teachers, they see that subject much beyond, and because it's somehow it's part of their daily practice, and their daily understanding and nurturing. So suddenly, when an art teacher or a music teacher or dance teacher steps into an IB curriculum, the sudden thing they get is, oh, we have our art education in one side, then you have the IB pedagogy and the curriculum on the other side, and there's a lot of conflict in the beginning, because um, I remember that when the whole idea of concept driven education came into, we always learn concepts. So what is so new about it? So, and because initially there's a lot of rebellious thought that come into, why this is there, how this is there, how can I do this with dance, this won't go with art, this don't go with music, and so much and so on. But over the
Sometimes
years,
it doesn't go with the unit, right? You have to do the standalone things.
exactly, and and
For
most of
example,
the
few
educators
units
like,
are very tough. If it is a science based unit, is really tough to integrate. If it is social
correct,
studies unit, is easy to integrate. Like how we express ourselves, most of the I think you can relate with your subject with this how we express ourselves, right? Even who we are.
true,
These are most of the times are getting integrated with dance and fine
true.
and arts, right?
No, this is something which I've seen throughout, actually, not only with one country or any specific, throughout, actually. Most of them do opt a standalone, uh, end up doing a standalone. But like what you told, making that interdisciplinary, transdisciplinary connection can be tough for something, but it is not impossible. The thing is, it's not impossible. So that's when, for me at least, it was not challenging, because I always saw my craft as part of many other interdisciplinary subjects, actually, or many other subjects. I saw it as a whole. I never saw it something which is localized. So I think that's the first thing. When you remove that perspective that it's something localized, it is not, actually. And as the child progresses from PYP to the middle school, the child also starts developing so much interdisciplinary connections within subject, where they understand all this is related, and all this can be related also in one way or the other. So rather than thinking the key concept, related concepts, our inquiry questions as something which is quite localized, we should rather think that this is something that can help me interconnect, this is something that can help me broaden the context of that curriculum, actually. So I always saw it like that, and it helped me a lot. So when I initially started planning also, like so I think definitely our PRC is quite enriched. And if we go through the sharing PYP blog, there's so much that is available out
There
there.
are a lot of
There
things to learn. There are a lot of things.
there are
People
a
are
lot
writing
of things to
books, so
learn.
you can read a lot of some blogs, and you can get some ideas from there. You can post your question over there, and it's really
Exactly.
fantastic
So there's
site for
so much
that.
out there. And the more and more I feel that single subject specialists start sharing their experiences with other educators, we learn. Because whatever I have learned over the years was through collaboration. I think so, with more and more educators, interacting with them, understanding how they
And
use
people are,
certain strategies.
collaborating the things, so you can find out more fine arts teachers or single subject teachers around the world easily. And then you can collaborate your
Definitely.
learners with their learners as well, right?
Definitely. So with that, that was my first thing, that change the perspective of how we see single subject specialists. It's not something that is isolated. It is very much part an integral part of the curriculum. And yes, the framework is there to help us, not to disturb us, but it's there to help us. So that's the first thing that I would like to tell everyone who is seeing this, that it's not something that we always have to go standalone. We can Good evening. We can very well integrate it with the current framework. So with that, I'll just share my presentation and start with what I have to share today. I hope my screen is visible. Is my screen visible? Can I go?
Yes, I can see your slide on the
Okay,
screen.
great, great. So I'll start. Okay, so why planning? So I think many of the single subject specialists who actually enter into PYP, they do not have a prior IB education. I think so. The first question that comes into every educator's mind, who are into arts, music, dance, or PhD, the initial question that comes into their mind is, why do we require planning? Like, it's a subject, and outside the curriculum also it can be taught, but why do we need so much of documentation? Why do we need that planning? My entire thing today revolves around this single statement: little things do matter. Yes, IB is a progression from PYP to MYP to DP. And the subject, whatever, whether it's visual arts, whether it's music, whether it's drama, whether it's PHE, all this has a progression till DP. So the smallest of smallest thing that we do in PYP has a progression and has the potential to impact a child, for him to take up several learning goals as he progresses from one year to the next year. As I go, I will be drawing those progression lines also. A lot of components which I'm going to share today, I mean, if I just talk about central idea, I can just go on talking about another half an hour or just 40 minutes, just how central ideas are being constructed. But today I'm just going to touch upon the basic things that we should consider while preparing standalone planner or a planner for single subject specialist. So there are three major stages to plan. One is inquiry, second is action, and third is reflection. Now, IB is a inquiry based pedagogy, and that uses concept driven curriculum. Now, it has so much potential for arts and for other co-scholastic activities if we actually just understand how inquiry can be used, or are we actually using inquiry, because inquiry based pedagogy itself opens so much doors for creativity. Now, let's go on to the components. So we all know there are TD themes. The umbrella is, of course, the TD themes. In the TD themes, now we have, in a planner, we have a central idea, we have key concept, we have related concepts. Something which I've seen few organizations doing, and I think it's a great practice, is development of learning goals and success criteria. This becomes quite important for single subject special, because if I take drama, or if I take dance, or if I take music, these subjects are quite vast. Now, what do we select? What do we aim to do in that? For example, if my learning goal is, now when we are talking about learning goal, we are directly coming, I always like to fix my summative assessment first. I fix my summative assessment and my learning objective. What is the summative assessment I do this first? So there are different techniques of brainstorming before doing a planning. So grasp like a goal, role, activity, the situation, purpose. It's a great tool. There are so many tools to do a brainstorming before we get into planning. So I always encourage everyone to do a prior brainstorming as to before making the planner, like, okay, just through this learning engagement, what is my final, like, what am I trying to teach, and how will I assess it? What will be my final assessment to get my learning objective? So if my learning goal is, say, if I talk about my subject, if my learning goal is, yeah, the child should be able to, or the student will be able to use contemporary dance vocabulary to, demonstrate ideas or feelings. Now that learning goal is there, now I can make a summative assessment also. Say they will perform their own routine, or they will collaborate together and create a routine, anything. I can make a summative assessment. Now I can start the reverse plan. Now there is, from the broader idea of a contemporary dance or a modern dance perspective, I've selected one thing that I just need to focus on. Now, in order to achieve this, now I can streamline things. I have a central idea, which is a broader idea. I streamline it again by just seeing through a conceptual lens. The key concept gives me a conceptual lens. And again, from the conceptual lens, now I go to related concepts that further streamlines it. It's just like the sea is there. You have, the river and the tributaries, just like that. I'm streaming down everything from the central idea to the key concept. Again, I'm further streamlining it through the related concept, further streamlining it on what is my learning goals and the success criteria that I'm defining for that. That itself gives you a broader framework that helps you develop ATL skills. It helps you identify the tasks. It helps you understand what skills should I focus in order to achieve at this uh, summative assessment. Then comes prior knowledge and provocation. When I attended my category one workshop back in 2018 end, where my head of school was also one of the facilitators, she shared, before even coming for that workshop, I knew that, prior knowledge and provocation, but I never ever actually, dwelled deep into it the way I do it now. I remember everything changed just with a small example she shared when she was a form tutor back then when she was teaching. Uh, there was this unit on space. So I remember this very clearly. So she told that she used to bring an empty box and she used to cover it with a black cloth, and she kept it in one side of the classroom. And every time while the class is going on, she used to go and take the cloth and look inside. And she never let anyone go near the box. That day for lunch also, she used to have the lunch early and then come back and look into the box again. And by the end of the day, the students were really like, what is there, and finally she removed the cloth and revealed it's an empty box. And she told that, it's about curiosity, about curious about knowing something which we don't know. And that's how she did the whole provocation for that unit of inquiry. So this actually opened my mind how creative is, like, what all doors are open for creativity, and how creatively can we introduce units and context to our students. So provocation is a fantastic, and I enjoy every time I do a provocation activity. Something which I do, that I think so I use it in dance, but I think so it's quite relevant with music and as well as visual arts also. That um, the difference between abstract and narrative formats. So I used to take them for a walk around the corridor, and I used to tell them, now start noticing the paintings on the walls. So then they'll come back when they reflect on it. They'll say that there are some paintings that they understood very clearly. Some paintings they did not understand, but everyone has a different perspective to it. And then I introduce the concept of abstraction narrative to them. So different. It's a very joyous process if we start understanding how to use provocation. I think a provocation done rightly can keep the energy and momentum of learning till the summative assessment is going. Next is definitely inquiry and inquiry questions, actually, and which again has a very greater connection uh, as we progresses from one program to the other. Transdisciplinary connections, of course, where I think so single subject specialists have the most difficult time initially, but when they get used to it, I think so that also becomes something that you look forward to, that how and in what all possibilities can we make authentic connections actually. Then, of course, the learning engagements and the international mindedness, anticipated action, SEL, and differentiation. Finally, the resources and reflection. So these are the components that I use in my planner. Some parts of the world, some of them might be using a little less. Some parts of the world, some of them might be using a little more. But with regard to the PYP framework, I think so. These are the major things that we should focus on. Now, I'll just take you through few uh, examples and from my planners which I have prepared, so that this becomes more relatable. So central idea. So I have, this is something um, constructing central ideas have always been a very what should I say, challenging as well as thought provoking process for me. I always enjoy making central ideas because as a middle school teacher I construct statements of inquiries also. So for me, a lot of time my difficulty was understanding what is the difference between central idea and what is the difference between statement of inquiry. How do you differentiate all these things? So central idea is a big idea actually. It is a big idea. So anyone who has gone through the PYP handbook, if they see, they remember, they know that there is this box of concept plus concept is equal to big idea. There's big thing. So it's a big idea actually that addresses more than one concept. We are talking about key concept. Now you have the central idea, you have the transdisciplinary themes, and you have I have created structure the lines of inquiry. Now this is something which I personally do. I love to color code it so that I can build the connections as and when I progresses to building my learning engagements. So if you can see here, there are three key concepts: function, perspective of connection, and I've selected one related concept: expression, because what is my ultimate aim is in the next slide, which is okay. See my learning goals. So one is identification. I want them to identify exactly what I just discussed before. Yes, Race, you want to ask something? Okay. So identification, able to identify abstract and narrative. So I assign levels also to it so that my learning goals, my assessments are quite prepared. It's like reverse the what we talk about reverse planning. So I do the summative, I do a reverse planning, and I do a forward planning for the learner profiles and the ATL skills. That's how I usually plan, and that's something which I've taken it from the enhanced PYP guide, where they clearly mention reverse planning for assessments and forward planning for learner profile and ATLs actually. Coming on to my next, so approaches to learning and student initiated action, anticipated action. Most of the time, I think so. Earlier, when I used to discuss with my colleagues inside my organization and outside my organization, many of them used to have a problem with action, that that uh, they are not able to generate genuine action, and whereas action is one of the most important and I should say crucial testimonies of how much the student has actually acquired and developed it, and taking it through that student agency, which is something that the PYP firmly believes in. Now this can be achieved if now there is something known as action ideas. It's a beautiful resource out there. There is so much, some they call it by this terminology only, action ideas. So if you actually research about action ideas in PYP, there's so much ideas, like preparing action charts, recognizing the student who have taken more actions with that unit, and um, so many ideas actually. So I use certain things where I think from earlier, from choose, act, reflect, now with the enhanced PYP they have defined it more into participation, social justice, advocacy, social entrepreneurship. So that has made it a little more easier, and we can define it a little more better with single subject specialists now. If your ATL, and if your ATL is actually building those skills for your summative assessment, uh, then sure, somewhere between the process, the child will start to make connections outside. And I've seen this throughout my subject actually. And I've taught them, for example, like what I told, my summative assessment is about using contemporary dance vocabulary to convey a message. Say they did, say one message, say something like um, say something like climate change or something. They've taken a small theme of climate change and they worked on it. Now that child who is now capable of doing that will start making other things also, because I clearly remember during one of my PIP exhibition projects, one of my students actually composed her own poem and made a dance out of her own poem, just by using the skills, the structure and the methodology that they learned in class. So that leads, that's where the student agency becomes live and in its full form actually. Now, prior knowledge, I'm just restricting myself on prior knowledge, because I can go on and on talking about prior knowledge, different strategies to actually, extract prior knowledge. But I'm sure many of the single subject specialists will be practicing prior knowledge, because prior knowledge and provocation, like I told, it can keep the momentum of learning going till you reach your summative assessment. So if that's something like, it's like start the starting point. Subject vocabulary is something which I'll discuss at the end, along with reflection. That's something which I'll discuss at the end. Next is teacher questions, inquiry questions. Now, like we told, it's an inquiry based pedagogy. Now, factual, conceptual, debatable questions. I do not know if every school out there actually, the single subject specialists, they use these in their planners. Uh, but yes, definitely in the middle school, when it comes to the planning, this is a framework that IB also gives us. But the inquiry questions really now, like I told you, we have the key concept, we have our related concept, we have our lines of inquiry. Now we come into inquiry questions, which is factual, conceptual, and debatable in nature. It's opening more rooms to, like most of the time, we say that the subject is vast, the subject is vast. It's about streamlining within these questions. Now, how much context can you bring in? How much context is needed for that age group? This is something, as professionals, we should take a call on. But definitely, inquiry questions actually help us actually determine, okay, these are the things that we want to address. These things can help us reach the summative. These are things that can build the skills. These are the things that the student can. There is, for example, debatable question. It actually opens a lot of room for student agency and student initiated action if we use it in the right manner. Why these, like I earlier when I started my discussion, I told all this have a progressing connections actually. So I don't know, Race, in your school, do they use debatable questions?
Yes, there is a question for teachers and question for students. And what we used to
Student.
do in the class, we put the students' question on the students' wall. So hardly we don't put the teacher's question, but sometimes it depends. But mostly we don't want to disclose. Once it is disclosed the
Correct.
questions, we put also teacher's questions. So we have
Correct.
divided two part, like a teachered. So one is
Hmm.
teacher's question, one is students' question.
Students
So whenever
questions.
student wants to ask any questions, we have some few in every lesson, like 4 to 5 minutes to write questions. So that is basically helping the students to how to form the questions.
Yeah.
As I'm dealing with the POEP learners, we also look at the question forming. I taking classes for grade 1, grade 2. So the students
Yes.
are very young. We are very motivate to the learners to formulate more questions, and then we define the questions is factual, conceptual, dataable. So those
Debatable.
things are happening in more or less in every school. So there is a
Right.
display board for wonder wall or question wall, and it's
Exactly.
really helping. And students can revise
Yes.
it. When they can see others'
Yes.
questions forms, it's really helping them.
Yes.
And we have a
Definitely.
question book as well in that I introduced last year. We
Okay.
have one question book for each unit. So there is a two book. One is a word book, new vocabulary word book, and another one is question book. So it's helping
Yes.
to the students to form the
So
questions.
I used to tell my single subject specialist, like when we used to discuss, I used to tell, like I told in the beginning, that line, little things do matter. The debatable question, it does not stop there. It progresses to the middle school also. We have debatable questions there also. Now, where does this all go to? When when the child reaches DP, we have something known as the theory of knowledge, or TOK. So the debatable question, and how we explore the debatable question, how we explore different perspectives, giving justification, all this actually builds them up for what is yet to come. So on a curriculum level, yes, it helps us explore the context, but on a progression level, from program to program, it is building the students, learning capacity and capability, and somehow, uh, nurturing them for what is yet to come. So it has a progression till there coming up. So I've given somehow, always I used to get this thing of, what is the difference between factual, conceptual, and debatable. So though most of it is available on the internet as resources, but I've still just taken down some few points so that they understand that, knowledge of fact basis and content driven and skill related is more factual concept that helps us actually, explore big ideas, help us compare contrast, help us explore, deeper disciplinary and interdisciplinary understanding. All that comes into conceptual. Debatable is when, it is used to promote discussions, it is used to, discuss different perspectives majorly. And I always like to do a unit-led debate. I do it in the middle school, but I have smaller versions of debates in PYP also when I teach dance. When we make something, and when we have a work, I always like to do a debate actually in class, because it actually, you can actually see the students taking their voice, choice, and ownership while they conduct the debate actually. So it's a beautiful exercise if we can actually, because all this is part of planning. Now, a lot of times we used to hear that, we are not getting sufficient authentic evidences for international mindedness, for this, for that. But the key is planning. If we actually plan, there is room and scope for everything and anything. So coming on to this, definitely making transdisciplinary connections. Now, I just recently completed a course with the University of British Columbia of putting arts in STEM education. Um, so always I knew that the creative economy out there, that, what we talk about today is the big buzzword out there, that, a lot of professions have changed. Like, today we have creative producers, we have influencers. Even in startup environments, there are so much like creative engineers, creative designers, creative website designers. A lot of new professions are coming up now. If you see, creativity is the underlying word in all these new designations. But when I see it as an educator, I understand my student should not just confine his art or dance or music or his sports practice just within that confinement. He should be able to connect it with the other disciplines. Transdisciplinary is a beautiful, because when I am I'm a choreographer, when I have to make my own project, definitely I use the mathematics skills, I use my literature skills. I have to start communicating. I have to do my PR. I have to create. I have to use visual art skills. I have to start designing posters. Everything, and I think so. Most of the professional development programs that, I see out there, led by teachers, are in PYP, because definitely I think so. Over the years of a lot of transdisciplinary nature, like, everyone has become really tech savvy. Everyone has become really creative. So transdisciplinary is a beautiful way of understanding and, connecting subjects at a primary level, I feel. Formative and summative assessments. Again, like, I always love to. Just before, I was just taking the workshop for MYP dance teachers and drama teachers, and this question of, formative, summative just rose up. So it's about how you see formative and summative. Like, we can give different definitions to it, but it's a basic understanding that, my summative is my finish line. It's my finish line. I see it like this. This is how I see it. So my summative is my finish line. Now in the track, I have two milestones. Those are my formative. It's just like going on a road trip, and, you see that board that, 200 kilometers more, or 300 meters more. So my those are my checkpoints. Now, formative works in both ways. It keeps the student informed as well as the teacher informed that is the learning going the right manner. So it's very very important to select the right assessment for tool for that learning engagement or the task you're giving, so that
I
it's
have
something that you
one
quickly
question
retrieve.
for
Yeah, sure.
for you. Um,
Yeah.
how how you're going to record the formative assessment? Like you are
Yes.
conducting classes for dance classes. So
Hmm.
mostly, do you record the video, or how you record the evidences? The
See,
development,
yes,
or taking
yes.
pictures, or what, or is it paper based?
Okay. So there are different things. So it can be checklist based. It can be so initially, I remember my initial years, I used to do a lot of anecdotal notes. I used to make so much of anecdotal. I used to keep a lot of anecdotal records, but it's like some teachers are quite adept with it. Uh, so in the last 2 years, when the online teaching came, it was quite easy for me. The Microsoft tools, basically, the Microsoft Forms really helped me because it is quite engaging at one way. At the same time, it gives me an immediate data. If I just download the Excel sheet, it
Google
actually gives
form.
me the data. Correct. A Google form, Microsoft Forms, both works, but I usually use Microsoft Forms more. I use most of
So
Microsoft
only
tools.
it is like question based. Nothing is like choreography or something like that as it is
Yes.
done. So
No, no, no.
people
So
might
that
think, yeah, how it can be a creative things. Sometimes students are more looking for something fun, something creative.
that's
So
that's that's
are
where
you giving
that's what
any
I told.
projects or something like that?
Yes, 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 I do. So that's why the formative should be a very simple task that has direct relation to your summative, number one. Second thing, it should have that potential to keep you and the student informed at the same time. So these are the two things that like these come as priority. So for example, if my student is having like I'm taking the same example really, say they are using contemporary dance language to create to express an idea, any idea of their choice. Now, for that, I have to understand whether they understand what is the difference between a contemporary dance language and a classical dance language. Now, so for me as an educator, the first thing is to understand, is my student able to identify between a classical dance language and a contemporary dance language? Now, if I use a forms, it not only gives written things, it gives me a lot of scope to add visuals. I can add videos. I can I can give them a sway presentation to refer to and note down their reflections. That is possible. Or maybe I can do a live demonstration in class and give them a checklist just to
Uh,
identify the differences.
Mr. Raj, can you show the previous slide for a while, for maybe for 1 minute? Someone is
The
asking for seeing the
Okay.
slide.
Yeah, I
Okay.
knew it. This is some slide which everyone needs because I get usually whenever I take a session, I get a lot of inquiries for this actually, difference between factual, conceptual, and debatable questions. Um,
There is a one question for you.
sure.
Mr. Arhan said, "How do you collect evidence for subjects like English or maths?" Um, I think this is question for the homeroom teachers, or say, even
How
though
do we collect evidences? Yeah, no, no, no. I can answer
yeah,
it.
for
That's not a
English,
problem.
yeah, maybe audience wants to learn how you collect the evidence for
Sure.
your subject, and later we can discuss about English and maths.
Yeah. So see, again, evidence
I think the
collection.
checklist, right? Those things are also a part of evidence, right?
Definitely, that's what I do. Like if you're see, uh, than retrieving evidences. If your planning is so organic in nature, the evidence flows, and you can really because if a teacher is not getting an evidence, even after doing say 3 to 4 months of learning engagement, then we have a serious problem in planning. That means it's not planned as such. There is no planning. There is a big lack of planning there, because if I am really done that, this is the task I'm going to do for 8 years. This is my final learning engagement. For that I have to do this. In this space I can involve student agency. In this space I can involve international mindedness. In this space I can bring a social emotional aspect to it. If that planning is done, the evidence is bound to follow. Yes, it may not be
Yeah, if there is
100%.
a well planned, then it's very easy
Yes,
to collect the
yes,
evidences, because you are going
yes.
to write all these things. How you're going to take
Correct,
the reflections from the students.
correct,
And also,
correct.
I really like the point that you have put it over there, related concept. If you choose one, two, or more than even two related concepts, it's easy to make your plan for what you're going to do it. Sometimes being a single subject teacher is really hard to um, integrate in all the central idea, but it's easy if you prepare some related
If you
concepts for you
streamline it
that are
through
going to help you.
concepts.
Yeah,
Hmm.
those are going to help you to
Yeah.
make lesson plan.
I
Those
I
going to
g-
help
I
you to collect the
generally I
evidences.
yeah, I generally don't use more than two related concepts, or mostly one or two. I don't take it more than two, because then it gets a little tough with single subject specialists. I don't know about other subjects mostly, but ideally it is good to keep one or maximum two related concepts. But
Got
again,
it.
now you have to strengthen the central idea with your related concept and key concept. Then it makes your inquiry questions and your learning education more meaningful, actually.
Yeah,
So
there
yeah,
is a question for you. Miss
sure.
Joyati asked a question. She wrote, I have a question. Do you prepare standalone planner for all the grades, or it is under one central idea and lines of inquiry where the tasks differs as per the requirement of different grade level? This is really, really a good question for
Oh,
a single subject teachers,
yeah.
because
So,
different schools are following a different kind of thing. So, what do you follow in your school? Do you follow
I
one standalone planner for one or two grades because you are single subject teacher? It not be possible for I don't know, maybe it's possible. Most of the cases is really tough for single subject teachers to make one or two standalone for each of the class. How do you manage those things?
No, so we just had the discussion with the MIP teachers just now on the same thing, that uh, that, for example, it's quite easy for me. I prepared a beautiful planner this year. I can repeat the same planner for another grade, or I can take it to the next year. But as creative people, like
If it is
I in
integrated,
my
it's very easy, right? If it
it
is
is
not
it is
integrated, you
very
have to.
correct, correct. If it is not integrated, it's quite easy. But believe me, Riz, like in my last so many years of teaching, like five years of teaching, I've never repeated a plan. I've never repeated a planner, because I'll tell you, because every year I get something from the students where I understand. Oh, this can also be explored next time. Oh, this
And after
possibility is also there.
3 years, the planner gets reviewed, right? So central
Correct.
idea change, lines of inquiry change. So it is
Yeah,
not going to be
but
repeated after 1 or 2 years.
correct. So that's
And you
what's
can survive
recommended. But
if you want to make one time. You can survive more than not more than 2 or 3 years, because after that PY get reviewed, central idea might get changed. So
correct,
if it is these things
correct,
change in the classroom, it is tough for the singers of the teachers to make to see all the concepts are being covered in one grade, or you have to make your own central idea. Sometimes for few grades, I as being a homeroom teacher, I do understand some few grades it not need to make centralized separate standalone, because some of the units are being integrated, but sometimes uh, one or two units integrated, and you have to require the standard of practices, right? That time you have to make it your own standalone planner for the learners, right?
correct. But it's good to prepare planners for every, because I have done it, and it has really, really, nurtured me as an educator, and as well as my students also. Because definitely I was teaching both. There was 4 years I was continuously teaching both the primary PYP and as well as MIP. So I needed to make that progression. So every year I definitely used to make different planners, and it always helps. And because I mean, our pedagogy is so beautiful that we can bring something new every time. So I particularly prefer that if we can make different planners for different grades, maybe earlier definitely it can be an interrelated planner, but the others I believe that if we can change it, and if the single subject specialist have the mind to change it, I think so they should go for it, because it will definitely help in our growth, and definitely in turn the students also. It will help them in leaps and bounds, to be very honest. Now I'll just come to the next. Uh, Provocations I've already discussed again. Teacher questions that could enhance, student questions, I think Race also had in there. Supporting student agency. I've discussed this also, that, provided our summative assessment uh, is, success is not a word, but is successful, definitely it is bound to create student agency, no doubt about it. And even while we prepare the learning engagement, then, something beautiful I see is that, when we can co-construct checklist, when we can co-construct rubrics, when we can co-construct questions with students, and when we give them that voice, choice, and ownership, the learning becomes more meaningful. Something which I like about the pedagogy inquiry, and pedagogy of inquiry, is that, where, it actually, what sort of say, demolishes this whole idea of this autocratic teachers. It takes us from that autocratic teachers pedestal down with the students, and we actually become the facilitator. We facilitate the learning, and that's something so beautiful. Because I think, earlier, when, even before I started teaching, I never knew that, YouTube has this subtitle option. Today everyone knows it, but back in those days I did not know it. I remember one of my students actually took over that, when they were actually seeing a video, and, they collected few resources, and they were, evaluating certain parameters of, dance vocabulary used in that video. um, there was thing, and, the student suddenly went down, and, he just clicked the subtitle, and I was so surprised. I was like, oh my god. But back in those days, now I'm more tech savvy, I feel so. So yeah. Yes, now, majorly when it comes to single subject specialists, I think we have, most of the learning engagements are divided between responding and creating. I've just taken one section out. Now, if you see the ones in colors, are my factual questions. Now, it's not about just writing those questions and just keeping there. Where are we using those questions? Are we actually doing so? If you can see, I have created a week-wise planner also here, based on those questions. I've made the learning engagements, I made my prior knowledge, provocation, everything under it. And if you see, highlighted in yellow are, international mindedness differentiation, where I am going to foster that through my learning engagements. So this is exactly what Race I was telling. If I do my inquiry questions, I can, like, from my key concept, then I use my related concept, then I come to my lines of inquiry, then to my inquiry questions. Now I'm planning the learning engagement. It gives me so much room to bring in differentiation, to bring in international mindedness.
There is one question for you, Miss Sharma. She has asked one question: how do you
Sure.
create central idea if you make a separate standalone planner for the learners? If it is integrated, then yes, single subject teachers, they don't have to make central idea because it's already integrated. If is not integrated, and if you think you could not uh, cover all the concepts in your one grade, particular grade, then in that case you have to make your one central idea or one standalone planner for the learners. Then how do you do make the planner, how to manage the things?
Basically, Shama's idea. Question was how to construct a central idea. How to construct a central idea is altogether a different. I don't know whether I'll be doing enough justice to it, Shama, if I just speak it in few lines. What I can suggest to you is, if you go to the IB website, there are, in PYP section, there are mini PDs, there are mini professional development videos, nano series, the nano PD series. So in that module one, it talks about constructing central ideas and beautiful resources. I still go back, and, whenever I get time, I visit all those nano PDs again. So in that, there is a particular module about central idea, and how to construct central ideas, how it should be strengthened with the key concept and the related concepts. Whatever I've talked about, you can get it there also, because constructing central ideas, I think I should take a little time, and, show you, because I like to do it in every time I've done in different ways, but I like to, because your central idea should be broad. It should have, a very global perspective. It should be able to encompass a lot of learning engagements, because it's a big idea. So it's there are so much
I want
that
to
that
add something. Yes.
sure.
For making central idea for single subject, there is a strength, right, Raj? There is a strength. So for single subjects, so you have to check the strengths, and you can make the central idea by seeing the big concept for that particular class. Being a single subject
Correct.
teacher, before you want to make a central idea for grade 2, so you need to check which strands are not covered in
You're talking
the
about the
period of
scope and
unit.
sequence.
Yeah, it's scope and
You're
sequence,
talking about the
exactly. So
sequence.
you have to check the central scope and sequence, and if you see that that particular grade, uh, for that particular grade, you have to make a separate planner. Then you have to check the phases. Also, you need to check the strands, which strand is not going to covered. So for maintaining the standard for that class, you have to choose that standard strands, and you have to prepare a central idea basis on the big concepts in
Yeah.
PY, right, Raj?
Yeah, that's one way of doing it. I've seen some other educators, like, like, which I feel it's a little more organic, is that they actually, decide the learning goal and the summative assessment and everything. And then they actually go to the scope and sequence and see what all strands actually, are these learning engagements getting adhered to, how many are being, covered. They mark it, and they proceed like that. So that's another way of also doing it. Both are, I think so, but it all depends on the educator who is doing it. I think both works quite well. I've tried both, and it has. But yeah, so primarily I think Shama's question was how to construct central idea. I think, Shama, that mini nano PD series in the IB website, if you go to the professional development tab in the IB website, it is there for PY in the PYP section. That can help
There
you a
is
lot on this.
Thank you. There is another question from Mr. Arhan Haider. He wrote, "Do you do any integrated planner with the theme?
Inter.
Do you do an integrated planner with theme? If it is integrated, that you are already putting your outcomes, learning outcomes in the that grade planner, right? Which grade planner is being integrated? You can put your plannings, your learning goals, and everything. You don't have to. I don't think so. You have to create your own
See,
integrated planner.
now it not required, but see, even if I do integration now in this unit which I've shown you, I've actually done so. This is actually where, stories can communicate in different ways, that is being addressed in the class. I've taken another central idea I've constructed, but I know that this unit can be integrated with the homeroom teaching also, because there is a transdisciplinary connection. So both are quite feasible, but again, it totally depends on the coordinator's call and the educator's call at the end of the day. But I think, even if, say, I'm not uh, it's see, I have to prepare a standalone planner. If it is integrating along with the form room unit of inquiry, fantastic, that's exactly what we require. So both are like, there is no compulsion that, if I'm having an integration with the classroom, then I don't need to prepare my planner. There is nothing, there is no bound. That, I mean, it's not a rule or something. But if I'm having an integration with the classroom also, but at the same time, I can prepare a standalone planner that can address something within that TEV. Fantastic. That's great. So that's where that's what I told about. If I don't see my subject as something that is isolated but part of a very holistic discipline, then it's actually possible. But it's how you see your subject. Don't see it as something that is standing out, because it is no longer. If I see all the jobs outside there, it is no longer. It's part of disciplines only right now. So yeah, with that, I think so. I have answered that. I'll go on to the next, which is use of resources. So even with dance, also, like, when I hear about resources, primarily stuck up just into videos. um, if you see, I put videos like V1, V2, V3, V4. If you see one of my week 5 learning engagements, I'm using V1, V4, W1, W2, and I look my resources. This is also just a little bit of micromanagement within your planner. I don't know how many people will be. This helps me actually, so that I know that I'm just not listing down those resources, but I'm actually using it. Where am I using it? What is the outcome of using that resources? Is it a very conscious selection, or am I just using it because it feels that it goes with it? So again, comes into that planning. Uh, Reflection. Now, I just want to take some time and talking about reflection. Um, Anyone in the participants can also answer this. We do a lot of reflection in PYP. uh, First of all, why do we do reflection? Second, uh, till when in the progression, till when do we do reflection? Like from a PYP to DP, where all and when all can we do reflection, and why do we do reflection? Race, if you can see the answers, you can let me know. I'll just stop my presentation with this. If you see any answers, you can let me. Oh, am I audible? Hello.
Yes, you are.
Okay. Okay. So basically, when we talk about reflection, there's, and whenever fellow educators also they share a reflection of their students, and every reflection is great, but it's also it's a way of seeing it. Do you see your reflection as like writing reflection, or do you see the reflection as constructing reflection? I like to see it as a constructing reflection, because a child who actually writes a reflection in PYP takes on that reflection till DP. In DP, we have something called CAS, which is creativity, activity, and service. They're also based on their CAS experience, they're writing reflections. And IB clearly defines reflection there, that it should describe what happened. It should express their feelings about that certain experience they had. It should generate an idea that should they should rethink and re-examine their choices and actions towards it. And fourth, they should ask questions. So if we actually just keep this 4 points and just go back to all the reflections which our children have written or the students have written, we can actually understand the reflection is great, good, but not great. It is not giving something that, again, this also reflects that why certain things have not been, we don't see student led action, or we don't see visible agency, is because, like I told in the beginning, little things do matter. The reflections we write, the small planning we do, all has the debatable questions we use, all have a very progressive connections in the program actually. And one more thing with regard to single subject specialist, I'm not like I told that I'll discuss at the end, is subject vocabulary. Now we have this phrase called all IB teachers and language teachers, and like a lot of teachers get confused with this, that they should be an expert of English language. No, they should be an expert of their language. Like for example, if I'm a dance teacher, I should be an expert of my subject vocabulary in dance. Now, why do I need to? Now, most of teachers who are confined to single subject specialists within the PYP may not be able to know it. But a lot of teachers in the middle school, they face a little tough time with this actually. Now, if the child doesn't know to use the subject vocabulary, if it's not able to identify the subject vocabulary, they will not be able to create a very good process journals that they submit for their e-portfolios when they reach to MYP 4 and MYP 5. So there, when the examiner sits, they actually look forward to the use of the subject language, and they call it the subject specific terminologies. So whenever you make your student write a reflection in class, see whether it's describing what happened, expressing their feeling. Is it generating ideas? Are they asking questions through it? Are they using the subject terminology? Are they able to identify? I always make it sure that my students actually highlight the subject specific terminologies. So this gives me a thing that now they're confident. Now they can take the learning forward. Now they can make more connections. Yeah, reflections help us know what the child's takeaway from that particular activity or unit on understand. Exactly. So Sabha, now you can just actually with these 4 or 5 points, if you go back to those reflections and see, there is so much room and scope for uh, what should I say, reimagining that reflection. Yeah, how best we learn. Hi, Subhra. I think so. We just had a discussion on reflection there also. Yeah. So it's not about mastery in English. It's about our subject language, establishing the why. Correct. Yes. So we all know reflection, and we all know that what is expected out of a reflection. But just think about our own students' reflection. Do we really feel that? And reflection need not be always written reflection. It can be videos. It can be through sketches. There are n number of ways that the student can do a reflection. So it always need not be written also. It always need not be written. To we prefer writing, but it always need not be written also. I have got some amazing video reflections, and some reflections in the term of comic strips also, which is mind blowing. So, but is it addressing these four critical aspects? Are we able to see how much the child has imbibed and how much the child wants to take it forward? Is it all visible in the reflection? Like like I told in the beginning, we can see it as a simple writing, or we can see it as constructing. I like to see it as constructing reflection. It gives me a more broader scope actually. Yeah. Yes, Abhay. Yeah. Mostly boring when it's written. I agree. Always when it is written, of course. So yeah, I think so. If you actually um, follow these while especially the subject terminologies and these critical aspects while reflecting, then most of them who ask that problems of retrieving data, you will have connections. So students will make interdisciplinary connections. Students will make uh, give you connections where even international mindedness and or their further understanding is visible. Yeah. So I think so with that much, I think so I've just touched upon the basics. So within each, of course, there are so much workshops, there are so much PD out there, and I just shared something very little that I've practiced in PYP, thanks to my mentors and people who have guided me over the years. Yeah, yes, Grace, that's it. I don't know if any question.
Thank you, Miss Sava. She said very good thing. Best is when they can make a video presentation poster. That the students love
Yes,
to do it, right? The creative
definitely.
things where they are,
Yes.
more creative, where they can demonstrate their learnings. Thank you. Here we have given one link in the comment section. So those who wants to be a speaker next coming weeks, you have to fill up the form. Okay, and you are always welcome to share your experiences, your knowledge, and skills with the education community. And I would love to say Mr. Raj for being with us for conducting this session. Uh, we have one certificate for you that I'm going to
Oh,
show
thank you
you at the
so much.
moment, and that Miss Asna French she has prepared this one. And let me show the slide. Wait. Uh, Here is a one lovely um, certificate for you. I hope you can
Oh,
see the
thank you.
screen.
Oh, yes, I can see. Thank you
I
so
have
much.
got one as well. Thank you, Miss.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. It means invited me that I mean, like, we are sitting in two different geographical locations at at the same time. The world of IB connects all of us together, through learning, through engagements, and through the wonderful professional development programs they have. So what you're doing in Bangladesh is absolutely praiseworthy. And uh, because I've seen a lot of PD materials out there, and it's great. And really, really, kudos and admirations to all of you for what you're doing. Thank you so much for the invitation. I had a lovely time today, back to back with one workshop and with one session. So it was quite enriching for me as well. Thank you so much.
I'd love to say thank you so much, all the audiences, those who joined today. And today's session. I have found that, which is really noticeable, the teachers are asking many questions. Those are really, helping to the speaker as well to talk about a lot of things. When you ask questions, the other audience can get the answers from you, right? And it was a lovely session with Mr. Raj. Thank you so much here for sharing your knowledge, and we hope we're going to collaborate again in future. And thank you all the audience for joining with us, and share your understanding, your knowledge with all of the educators. Now we have to say bye. Uh, have a good night, and enjoy your teaching and learning. Take care. Bye bye.
Thank you so much. Bye bye.